So I wanted to come out tonight and do a couple of things. I wanted to test out my new vlogging setup. I've improved the sound quality since my Snowdonia trip, and I've improved the camera. So I've got an A7S II shooting in low light mode, which is lucky because it's actually quite dark now. I'm up at 8000 ISO on that camera. But tonight's shoot demonstrates something that I don't tend to do anymore. The thing that actually inspired me to talk about this today was nothing to do with sunrises or sunsets. It's the fact that a lot of people recently have been chasing the aurora. We're going into a period of high sun activity where a lot of very beautiful aurora displays are visible across the world and across the UK, and people are really on the chase for it at the moment. And what I found when I used to chase sunrises and sunsets, and especially during the Comet Neowise chase back in 2020, was that I fell into this one-upmanship. It's probably a social media phenomenon, but you end up playing this game with yourself and with your peers, where you go to honeypot locations and you attempt to get better conditions than you either got before or someone else that you've seen on Instagram has got before. Sunrise and sunset photography just really puts me into that state of mind where it's more about collecting something than actually being present in the moment and enjoying the photography. And I've really changed my approach to photography in the last few years as a result of that Comet Neowise chase. Nowadays, instead, I focus on photo trips. So I'll plan a trip. My recent Snowdonia trip is an example, and then I've got the Cairngorms and Ascent coming up in the autumn. So I'll plan those trips for months and then execute them. It leads to a different style of contemplative photography. Instead of rushing around and trying to get an end result, I almost sink more into the environment that I found myself in. There's the first few days on any of those trips where you just don't quite feel settled and you don't really understand the place that you're in. But after those first day jitters pass, you end up seeing things completely different and starting to understand the landscape more. And that's much more what I like nowadays, is planning those photo trips. And in between those photo trips now, I rarely pick up a camera. I mean, I'll come out maybe twice a month just to keep my eye in and keep my technical skills up and make sure, well, just for fun as well, because I miss taking photos. But I find that my photography skills don't suffer from not playing with the camera much in between these trips. And in fact, it gives my subconscious a break where I have a chance to not think about photography for a while, or at least think about the editing or different aspects of photography and think about the theory rather than the pure technicality of taking a photo and executing a shot. And apart from that, it's just a lot more of a sustainable way of approaching photography, where you're not constantly chasing conditions and looking for the next dopamine hit. So the sunset we had this evening is a prime example of how frustrating the chase used to be. It was a sunset that could have gone any way. There were some nice high clouds, some nice mid clouds, and if the sun had have hit at the right angle, they could have caught the colour nicely and it could have been absolutely spectacular. And I used to rush out to shoot locations in those conditions all the time. And on a night like this evening, where there was a little bit of afterglow, but it wasn't very interesting, and the tide wasn't quite in the right place, so I didn't get to a composition that I've been eyeing up for a while on this beach. In the past, where these sunset shoots would have been my bread and butter, I'd have been really disappointed by the outcome of tonight. But instead, I just enjoyed being by the beach. I filmed a bit of video, a few time lapses, and just spent time listening to the waves. And it's a completely different experience when you're not jumping the gun and being completely results orientated. You're actually enjoying the process more. I don't think that photo will come to much, but I will post it up at the end of this video, and I will see you guys next time. I don't know who I'm kidding here. The conditions weren't great and I wasn't happy at all with the composition. I guess in some ways this goes to prove my point. However, I do want to offer a counterpoint. Sometimes chasing conditions is the best thing you can do in photography. As I said before, it used to be my bread and butter, and what skills I have were gained through this approach. And by the same token, some of my favourite images I've ever taken have been done before or after work in a pinch. So instead of wasting your time with something that didn't work, I thought instead we might look together at some of my favourite images while chasing conditions. So first up, let's look at the image that I'm best known for. This image placed well in Landscape Photographer of the Year last year. It's got all of the elements that make a pleasing atmospheric photograph, and it's also got a popular landmark within it, so everyone immediately has an association with Glastonbury, whether they've been to Glastonbury Festival and seen the tour from the distance, or they're from Somerset and they know how iconic this place is. But you could go to this location 1,000 times and only have this combination of elements once. You've obviously got the cloud inversion and then the light on the pooling mist in the valley and the birds flying across just at the right moment. Usually mist happens on anticyclonic days, so days where it's not stormy, but this happened to be one of those transitional days. These conditions are quite unusual for midsummer. This was taken mid-June, which is the only time that you get the sun alignment behind the tour like that. And it was also a stormy day, so you get the sun disappearing. I mean, just after this photo was taken, the whole scene fizzled out. So there's an element of jeopardy and serendipity in this image, which makes it stand out. And this is one of the advantages of going to your local patch, is you can return over and over again until you get the right conditions. This particular morning was the third day that week I'd been down to Glastonbury tour to try and get the sun in the perfect position with the right conditions. So yeah, a bit of serendipity there. Then we've got another local landmark. We've got Burrow Mump here. And again, this is a very special combination of conditions. Obviously the levels do flood. Almost every year you can get a nice shot of Burrow Mump that's similar to this. But what was lucky about this particular one is that the water froze over just after a massive flood. So you get the lovely crystalline ice patterns in the foreground here and printed out big. It looks absolutely gorgeous. One of the things I like about shooting stars in the winter is that you don't have to stay up ridiculously late to get it. I think I took this at about 9 o'clock at night. So I was back and in bed by 10:30. So yeah, sometimes the winter sky is the best time to go and take astrophotos. And then another Somerset landmark. This time we've got Cheddar Gorge, and it's a bit of a classic shot. This snaky road in the foreground. This is time blended, so I took the lights, half an hour after sunset, or 15 minutes after this particular moment, and then blended them in post. But again, this is a location I've returned to again and again, over and over. Sometimes you get lucky when you go on a photo trip and you're in the right place at the right time, but often it doesn't work like that, and perseverance is what's needed. And then I open this conversation talking about Comet Neowise and the chase. This is one of the last images I took of Comet Neowise. It was during a family holiday in Suffolk. I've taken hundreds of photos of this lighthouse, but I'll never have this combination again. In fact, none of us will, because this is a periodic comet that comes once every few thousand years. The last time it was with us was in the Neolithic period, so I'm highly unlikely to be able to take a photo of this one again. But as I said earlier, it was really this chase of Comet Neowise which got me over my love of this style of chase, condition-oriented photography, because the adrenaline rush of chasing Neowise for the best part of a month was such that afterwards nothing quite hit the spot again. And that's really why I've turned towards taking photos on photo trips rather than trying to squeeze shoots in on family holidays or before or after meetings at work. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful, just my thoughts on sustainable approaches to photography. I'd love to hear what you think, so let me know in the comments how you approach photography and what you find most sustainable. Thank you for watching today's video, and I'll see you next time.